Hello everyone, this is Flag. Welcome to another episode of Frag Pro Shooter. Just last week, I was on Frag's official YouTube channel discussing some tips and 4 deck archetypes with Canly. Today, we're gonna discuss those 4 deck archetypes further, talk about what the best deck for each archetype is, and how to play these archetypes to win. But I'm not alone today. We have a special guest returning to the channel. As you might have recognized from the thumbnail, God Rippin is back on the channel. If you don't know him, he was on the channel back in April when he finished at number 1 on the ladder that season. He also has multiple other top 10 season finishes and is set to finish at number 1 this season as well. I am very glad to have you on the channel again. How are you?
Thank you, Flag, for having me on again. I'm glad to be here and I'm very happy to help you with this video.
My pleasure. So let's discuss the archetypes that I talked about on Frag's channel. I divided all decks in Frag into 4 archetypes, as you may have seen in the video. So number 1, control decks. Number 2, bunker rush decks. Number 3, Cagey defensive decks. And the last spot is for niche decks, which we'll shortly discuss at the end. So today we're gonna get to hear your take on these archetypes, whether you agree with what I said with the archetypes and how to play these archetypes perfectly and how to counter them.
Okay, let's jump into it.
Alright, Chris, so what is your definition of control decks exactly?
So a control deck is a deck that is supposed to help you control the entire field so you know exactly what's happening in the game.
Right.
And you can decide what to do.
Right. So I would say the main difference is that you try to find a balance between being very offensive and putting pressure on your opponent and being too defensive and just staying in the back and just defending your opponent's attacks, right?
Yes, I think control decks are the most balanced, but I guess that people like to push a lot or maybe just frustrate you with a lot of defense.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Basically, as you can see on the screen, these examples of control decks, we have mainly two defenders. It can either be 2 defense cards or a combination of camp and defense, and usually 3 offensive cards. But you have to have an attack card, right?
You want to have an attack card because an attack card is built to go straight in the opponent's side and you don't have to really worry about it, especially if the card has a good AI like Lucha Muerta or
Andromeda.
Yes, you can focus on maybe clearing the opponent's attack and then joining your cards on the other side.
As for the other 2 cards, of course you can have another attack card, as are the examples in both decks. For Bridges and the Pit, we have both Cypher and Lucha Muerta as our attack cards. But is there actually a preference between using a center or wild card for the remaining 1 or 2 spots?
I'd suggest that you main. If you want to put in a center or a wild card, you should main it because their AI is not that great and they're not gonna help you with pushing forward, you know?
Right.
So yes, you might want to have the attack cards mainly played by the AI. And if you want to play a center card, you should main it.
Right, yeah.
So maybe 1 center or wild card, not more than that defense card.
So Chris, could you tell us in each column, starting from left, that is the boss in the Bridges map, could you tell us which cards for the defense rule are best to be controlled as in mained, and which cards should we leave for our AI to control?
So I'd say that boss, unicorn, and prisoner are great if you let the AI control them. Medusa is not good, so if you have Medusa in your deck, then that should be your main, so your first main. And Bobler is not that great, but he's still a good card.
Just to clarify, I've put these cards in this order based on how much I recommend them. So for example, over here, as for your defense, I suggest using the boss and then Queen Unicorn and then Prisoner and then Medusa and at the end Bobler. That is, if you have the other 4 cards.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now let's move on to the next role, which is camp in this deck. Again, we could probably use Queen Unicorn and the boss paired up, but I'm just adding some variety here. So I suggested using Solar Front for Bridges, but what do you think?
So for the camping card, I think that Soldatron has a perfect AI.
Yeah, I agree.
And you should let him do his thing. Then Duncan, you should main him. He has a good AI, but not that much. But Sombrero is the same as Soldatron. Shino and Equalizer, you shouldn't bother to main them.
Alright, how about for the two cards in the middle?
So you have Blood that you should main if you have the chance to. Rippin is of course to be mained. Bibi has a great AI, not the best but still good. Duality, you should main her because it's quite complicated the way she works.
Yes.
And Wolfson too, you should main him.
Right, and the second center card?
Then you have Cypher, he is good to be left alone. Ronin too. Hakuryu, you should main him. Hunter is good to be left alone and you could main him too, he's a great main. So if you have Hades' frag power, she's a beast and you should control her, but she has a good AI too.
Alright, and how about the attack card?
All these 5 cards are good to be left alone and then you can switch on them whenever you need to. If you want to main Andromeda, she is one of the best characters to main.
Alright, so and which 5 cards do you pick if you want to pick a deck for bridges as a control deck archetype?
Yeah, so the pick is Boss Soldatron, then of course Rippin as a main, Paku and Lucha.
Alright, so Paco is a little bit interesting over here. Maybe if you ask other players, they would go with Run-In or Cypher or Andromeda.
I just like when you pass behind or near Paco, he just turns around and destroys you. That's what I like about him.
Okay, yeah, I get it. Moving on to control decks in the pit. How do you rate the camp cards over here?
Of course, Sogeki is the best camp you could possibly have in the pit. She is gonna control everything. You have Polar. I would say Polar is the second best camping in the pit.
Wow.
Especially if you go against another control deck, because Polar can easily wipe them out. If you want to use Mimi, you should main her at least at the beginning to place a wall, and then you should let her be.
Right now, between the 3 offensive cards, we have 3 new cards. Dr. Crow in the middle column and Crystal and Archon in the fourth column. So what do you think about this card?
I think all of them need to be mained, especially because they are legendary cards and they have a long respawn time and you don't want them to die. You should main them most of the game if you choose them.
And which 5 cards do you pick for your pit deck as a control deck?
For the pit control deck, I would pick Sogeki, Boss, Rippin, Blood, and Lucha.
Additionally, if you don't have Rippin, I think that BB or Hakuryu or even Archon, who's got a buff and who's super powerful right now, as I've said multiple times, would be great picks to have in this deck.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially Archon is a complete beast now, so you should try it.
For sure. Alright, now let's move on to Bunker Rush archetype. What style of playing or what style of deck do you define as Bunker Rush decks?
A Bunker Rush deck is a deck which purpose is to just completely crush your opponent in their side of the map and destroy the bunkers as fast as you can.
So basically we are keeping the opponents under pressure so they don't have enough time to push back and deal any damage, or they just deal little damage to our bunkers.
Yes, so you need to keep behind some cards that can totally do their thing on their own, like the Boss or Queen Unicorn, or the cards that have better AI on the back of the map, and you can just worry about bunkers, ignoring everything and anything.
I feel like a great strategy with Bunker Rush decks is to tell your troops to go down one lane and you and the main card that you're playing as go down the other lane.
Yeah, that's totally the strongest strategy you could use with a Bunker Rush deck.
Awesome. Alright, so let's talk about the new cards in here. We have Quarterback, Tankbot, Katarina, Ollie, Frisbee, and Rickrock here. What do you think about them? Should we main them or let our AI play them?
Quarterback, he's not the best tank, but you could use him as a tank, and his AI is good. Katarina is very good, especially in Frenzy mode, when you can main her and completely destroy what is left. Then you have Tankbot. Tankbot is a great main. Ollie is a great main, but you should main her. Frisbee is good to be mained. Rickrock is good to be left with the AI.
And what is your top deck for Bunker Rush archetype in the bridges?
I would pick Boss, Ronin, Blood, Mech, and Lucha.
Of course, Cypher is also a great attack card and you can use him in place of General Mech if you want.
Yeah, I chose General Mech because if you have both at the same level with Frag power, General Mech is more valuable in terms of Bunker Rush.
So we have Queen Boom and Fragman for the pit. What do you think about them?
I think both should be mained. I don't like their AIs. Queen Boom is a great card, especially if you pair her up with Bibi. They can both boost your team.
And what is your suggested deck for Bunker Rush deck for the pit?
I'd pick Sogeki, Bibi, Blood, Andromeda, and Lucha.
And which card do you main?
I'd main Andromeda.
How do you usually play against somebody who's playing a Bunker Rush deck? How do you counter them?
So the thing you want to do is to destroy their first attack. So you should main your defense card or your main if you're comfortable with it. And then you should give command to your cards to defend a bunker, and you should stay to the other bunker and clear their attack. Then you can counter attack, and then that's it. You practically won because they can't recover.
They're not going to have enough cards to defend against your counter, and you're going to take their bunkers while they're dead.
Exactly.
Now the third archetype, Cagey defensive decks. The purpose of this archetype is to mostly sit in the back, let your opponent attack, defend their attacks as well as you can, and try to use your 1-man or 2-man pushes in the game to make the most out of them. And you usually end up winning just by getting one bunker without losing any bunkers, or just by a couple of hundred of points. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, they are probably going to be that for the entire game. I would say that Sombrero is a great card for a Cagey defensive deck. Even in Bridges, I would use it instead of Soldatron, just because the purpose of the deck is to defend and you lack attack cards, but Sombrero is gonna take care of bunkers for you.
That's very true. I think between the recent cards that we've getting in the last couple of months, Sombrero is the one that has actually brought something that is completely new to the game. Just maybe Sombrero is the card that has revived Cagey defensive decks. How about these three new cards in this archetype? Dr. Frost, Gigagoo, and Bud Mama.
So for these three cards, I think you should let them be because their AIs are great.
And which 5 cards do you pick for your Cagey defensive deck in Bridges?
I'd pick Boss, Sombrero, Medusa, Ronin, and Lucha.
And which card would you be maining?
I'd be maining Medusa.
So we have already talked about all cards in the pit for Cagey defensive decks, but what are your top 5 cards to pick for the perfect Cagey defensive deck in the pit?
So I wouldn't change the cards you already chose. I'd just say that if someone doesn't have Queen Unicorn, then the boss is always a good choice.
So you could replace Queen Unicorn with Duncan and main Duncan instead of Cypher, which you would normally control. Is that right?
Yeah, that's totally fine. You could also main Hakuryu, for example, and let a defense card behind.
So the fourth and last archetype are the niche decks. Basically, this archetype consists of decks that don't belong to the other 3 archetypes, and they are played a little bit differently than the other ones. Or these are decks that are actually hyper defensive or hyper offensive, and are even more offensive than Bunker Rush decks, or even more defensive than Cagey defensive decks. For example, the deck at top left is super offensive. It's basically just a 1 push game, and if you succeed in your push, you're gonna win the match 99% of the times, and if your push breaks down, you're probably gonna lose and there is no way around it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Also, if you take the bottom left deck with Sombrero, Shinobi, Solartron, Queen Unicorn, and Ronin, this is a deck that stays in the back, which is played like the Cagey defensive deck, but this time you're not even gonna try to get to your opponent's bunker. The main goal is to just use your Ronin or Queen Unicorn to get as many frags as you can, especially while your Sombrero has his super up and running.
Oh yes, I agree with that. I think that those 2 decks are actually viable in the game right now, and they are pretty fun. I tried them.
Yeah, the decks on the right are not very viable, but again, like if you play them in the perfect way they were designed to be played, I think you can have some sort of success with it and have some fun, of course. Before closing the video, Candy has given me and 11 other content creators holiday special 100 diamonds gift code. To my Android users, you can easily enter this code FLGVIP at the bottom of your shop into your gift code box. iOS users need to tap on one of the 2 links in the description of this video. This code is only valid until January 2nd, 2021. As I said, there are 11 other VIP codes that you can find by watching the other 11 Frag content creators videos, which I've linked in the description below, plus the one given on the latest video on Frag's official YouTube channel. Alright Chris, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me back.
Sure, I really appreciate you coming back on the channel, and I'm sure that my subscribers enjoy my content when you're on it as well.
Well, I'm looking forward for the next occasion to be here again.
Yeah, me too. Let's do it again. That's it for this video, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button and ask your questions in the comment section, and please consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. Happy holidays and take care, everyone, until the next gameplay video. And when you stop them completely and their cards are fragged and their cards are being respawned, and you're gonna take their bunkers while they're dead. I tried my hardest not to say kill and dead because I feel like it's better for your YouTube and algorithm and so on, but at the end I just caved in. There is no way around it, like get fragged or like take care or okay.
Io donesco color, quel vermiglio donesco color, non più frai.